on summer holidays at the moment, and I am with my children on school holidays, and we're actually getting away from the heat in Central Australia at the moment and heading to the beach. And as such, I'm not going to be able to record my usual video that I would make for Lada's channel because I'm away from all my equipment and everything. But I want to prepare something as we're in a very special period between eclipses, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But as we were driving through the countryside, I was struck, or reminded if you like, by how seasonal everything is in our lives. And we're talking about astrologically as well as our earth seasons also. Currently it's summer in Australia, and as you can see, it's very, very dry and very arid in Central Australia. But once upon a time, fairy tale, about a few million years ago, Australia was part of Gondwana, this massive continent. And here comes a car in the background. Was part of Gondwana, and this massive continent then broke up and became Antarctica and became Australia and the Indian subcontinent, etc. But at that time, when it was part of Gondwana, Australia was covered in rainforest and swamplands and marshlands, a bit like the Louisiana bio. So I'll let the cars go by so you can hear me adequately. So it reminded me of how seasonal we are in terms of the millennia on the earth as well. We've gone through in Australia seasons of rainforest and seasons of when we're in swampland and lakes, and now we're like what you're seeing hopefully through this footage at the moment, very arid country, very dry, very sparse, and quite a hostile land, really. So it reminded me of our seasons, and we go through cycles and seasons with the planets as well as in nature all around us. So this is very dry at the moment. It will be in about 6 months' time lush and green because the winter season will come. So I wanted to share that with you and then talk a little about the season we're in astrologically right now too. Hi guys, so I was going to talk about the seasons of our lives here at the beach, where it's much cooler than where we've just come from. But the wind is crazy bad, so I might just show you where we are, and then I will talk from our where we're residing tonight on holidays. So yay, it's nice and cool down here, but like I said, crazy wind and not good for recording. But check this out. It's really lovely, and there's heaps of people down here escaping the heat. So what I'm going to talk about today is a little different to what I would usually do in my videos, simply because I'm on holidays, I don't have my equipment with me, and I'm trying to be kind to myself in this season between the eclipses. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, we are looking at seasons of life here, and there's seasons in the universe. I mean, who's to say? Maybe the fact that Australia was part of Gondwana all those years ago and was lush and tropical and had lots of rainforests and so forth and swamps, and then progressively became this more arid environment. Maybe that is just a big, large million-year type cycle, and maybe we'll end up going back to that. I mean, who really knows? Perhaps as the galaxy spins, it takes millions of years to come round and the cycle goes round. Who can say? But there are seasons, as we know, in the earth. at the moment in Australia it's summer, in the Northern Hemisphere it's winter, so we're all feeling the seasons wherever we actually are right now. And there are seasons and cycles of each human lifespan, and they're often associated with the progress of the planets and what they are connecting with at certain stages of our life. Not always. There are some transits that are much more about our where they are in the chart rather than our age or the particular cycle of life we're in, but also there are planetary transits that are very seasonal to the particular era or age of life that we are in. So, you know, there's childhood, there's youth, there's adulthood, there's middle age, there's older age and maturity and so on. And there's planetary alignments for all of those. They're astrologically connected cycles. And so I want to talk a little now about when we do general predictions each week, and we talk about, oh, here's what the eclipse is going to do for all signs. And then we get a lot of comments saying, well, that didn't happen for me. What a load of garbage. Astrology's wrong. Well, I'd like to, this is the crux of what I want to talk about in this video. Astrology, it's not wrong, because what is happening in your chart right at this moment is very unique to you and the cycle of life, the stage of life, the season of life that you're in. And you might be age 42 and going through a particular midlife season. You might be turning 30 and going through a Saturn return. Or, you know, there might be some other planetary connection playing out that's very specific to your own chart. So if I was to then go on and say, well, this is what the eclipse will bring certain people with a certain placement of the nodes in their chart, it's very general and it's not touching on what is specifically happening in your chart. Obviously, we don't have time to go through a billion people's charts each week and talk about what is specifically playing out for them. But let me give you an example as an illustration of what's happening in my chart at the moment. Right now, I am heading up to Jupiter, which is going through Sagittarius, transiting through Sagittarius, which is a very healthy placement for Jupiter to be transiting. I'm about to, or moving into my Jupiter, transiting Jupiter, squaring my natal Jupiter in the house that it rules, which is Pisces. That's where it sits natally for me, so it's making a Jupiter square Jupiter. Now this is actually a once in 6 year cycle that Jupiter will square its natal placement. So it's rare, it's reasonably rare. But that's not going to be happening for everybody right now. And so there's no point in me talking about that on the weekly horoscope. One of the things I'm experiencing with Jupiter square Jupiter, and my natal Jupiter's in the house of the body, is that I'm having hip issues at the moment, lucky me, which Jupiter and Sagittarius rule hips. So that's one thing that's playing out. But that alone gives me knowledge about, okay, I've got Jupiter square Jupiter, my hips are starting to play up a bit. I know what I can do to deal with that. And I also know that if I deal correctly with that energy at this time, that it's not going to impact me greatly in the long term. If I deal with it in healthy ways right now while the transit is occurring, then I'm going to be set up to move forward into my older age with a much healthier body. So I'm being kind to my hips right now as I deal with some of the issues that are being brought up with Jupiter square Jupiter. Similarly, I'm going through a midlife transit. That Jupiter square Jupiter, like I said, it's not particular to any age. It happens within a 6 year time, every 6 years or so. And it depends on where Jupiter sits in your chart when that will occur for you. But a middle age transit is Saturn opposition natal Saturn. That occurs between age 42 to 44. And that's the transit that I'm also going through at the moment. And when you're going through a Saturn opposition to Saturn, one of the manifestations of that is that you can actually have issues with your bones and teeth. Again, that's also something that's playing out for me right now. And of course, Saturn opposition Saturn, Jupiter square Jupiter, they're happening at the same time. So they're both kind of playing out in the bodily realm. And so, you know, one is my hips and the other is bones and teeth, but they're all kind of connected to similar things. Like Saturn square Saturn, bones of my hip, Jupiter square Jupiter. So knowing this is just an example. This is the kind of stuff that a good astrologer can discover in your chart if you have a reading. And it's not the kind of thing that we're going to be talking about in a weekly astrology video, because it's very personal to your own chart. Keep in mind, knowledge is power as well. And if you know what's coming up for you, or get a, I mean, not everybody's going to have hip issues or bone and teeth issues, but if you're given a shopping list of different options for how the energy might play out for you, you can act with wisdom about how you deal with the upcoming energies. Another example of that in my own life right now is the eclipse, actually, which is occurring for me on the 12th house, 6th house axis. So 12th house is retreating, getting away from things, connecting to spirituality, dream life, anything to do with divinely inspired creativity, divinely inspired healing, those sorts of things. And 6th house is our wellness, our well-being. 6th house is our health. 6th house is to do with our regular everyday routines and our work life. And so when we've got the eclipse occurring there, it can bring manifestations in those realms. But for me particularly, and this is something again I wouldn't cover in a weekly video, for me particularly this is occurring on my sun. And so I'm just hoping to goodness it doesn't bring a heart attack, because the sun happens to rule the heart. So you know what? I'm actually taking precautions, knowing that this is happening in a very prominent placement in my chart, this eclipse that's coming up next week, happening in a very prominent place in my chart. That's why I'm on holidays. I thought, right, I need to de-stress my life. I need to have a bit of a retreat, 12th house. I need to get away to the beach, 12th house, Pisces kind of energy. I need to have some time out and just relax and rest, because I have been working really, really hard lately. So that is something that, knowledge of what the eclipse is doing personally for me in my chart is empowering me to make choices to sort of help me cope with the energy shifts that are about to unfold. In fact, they probably are already being felt. Like we're a week away from the final eclipse in Leo at the moment, and this is the culmination period, a culmination eclipse of all the energies that have been building up through eclipses over the last 18 months. And the energy, as I said, for me is 6th house, 12th house. You might like to look back at one of my videos from a couple of weeks ago to see where what axis the eclipses are playing out for you. And once you know that, well, you can, you realize that, well, this final eclipse is going to be the end of all that energy that's been building up in whatever area of life it's been for you over the last 18 months. It's kind of like the last hurrah. The karma will be done, the finalization, the up-leveling into the new you regarding, say, work life, regarding career, regarding your spiritual life, regarding your body's health. There might be some sort of up-leveling that's happening for the final time before the eclipses start moving into their new axis realm in the weeks ahead. For the next 18 months, basically. The focus is going to go somewhere different. So you might question why, you listen to all these readings every week, or, online on the YouTube channels, and nothing ever happens for you. And you might say, well, astrology is a bit fake then, or, but if you're questioning things like that, I'd encourage you to get a reading from somebody, one of the readers on Lada's channel, reading from me, and really, learn about, or if you don't want to get a reading, you can, learn about astrology yourself, discover it in depth, so that when you observe where the planets currently are moving, you can make an assessment. Okay, not only is this eclipse happening here on this particular angle, but I'm going through my Jupiter square Jupiter. What could that mean? What might that look like for me? Or I'm going through my midlife Saturn opposition Saturn. What's that going to look like for me? Oh my goodness, at the same time Pluto is going to be squaring my moon. Far out. That's a really intense period I'm going to go through, because I've got all these major impactful transits happening all at once. So when you have knowledge, you have power. That's really the crux of what I wanted to say. When you have knowledge, you have power. So it pays to either learn about your chart, or to get somebody who knows what they're talking about to interpret it for you, so that you have power. Now, right now, we are in between the eclipses. That's hopefully I'll get this video loaded before the next eclipse, if I get back from holidays on time. But we're in between eclipses, so like I said, this is the culmination period, and it's a great opportunity to reflect on the last 18 months. Where have you grown? You know, what have you learned? In what ways has your life course altered? Like I said, and I'll use my own chart as an example here. 6th house, 12th house axis has completely 180-degree turnaround altered my work life. 18 months ago, I was working for a big engineering company, and now I'm working for myself. First time in my life I've ever worked for myself, and I'm loving it. And it's happened through momentous life-shifting events that occurred at the time of the eclipses over the last 18 months. So my work life, my everyday life, how I pay the bills, how I show up in the world, what my daily routine looks like, has been completely turned for the better on its head. And I'm really grateful for that, even though it hasn't been without, its upheavals and difficulties. So look at your life. Where have things completely turned around and changed for you? Maybe 18 months ago you were single, and now you're married with children. Lada's a brilliant example of this. 18 months ago, well, maybe a bit more than that, but she's now a mother with 2 kids, which is not where she was this time 18 months ago. So big, empowering life change that can occur through the eclipses on an axis. And when we're in between the final 2 eclipses, it's like the karma's wrapping up. The finalization, the ending, the final bit of up leveling to lift us into a little bit more into our destiny, the destiny that our soul desires. So I want you to think about, where have you grown? Where have you changed? Where has life altered for you? And I would just say, spend this week giving thanks. This is a great week for offering your gratitude to the universe, reviewing what's gone on, where you've come from. Really, take some retrospective time and some time to offer, even if you're into this sort of thing, offer ceremony, perhaps, light some candles, say a prayer, offer some gratitude to the universe for how you've grown. And again, as we look forward to what the next 18 months is going to bring, we can offer gratitude, and the gratitude that accompanies anticipation for the new up-leveling we're going to receive. And the more positively we can approach these things, and the more positively we can look at our past even, the more empowered we are, and the more the universe can work through us, and we can work with the universe's energies when we have this positive attitude, says the woman with Jupiter in her first house, of course. So I just wanted to touch on that, talk on that this week. Again, that's why I'm on a retreat space, so that I can spend some time just assessing what's happened to me, so that I can chill out a bit. And so hopefully the eclipse on my sun doesn't cause anything too stressful that I can't handle, that I'm not in a good mental space to take on, and so that I'm ready for whatever new things come my way. So I hope you have had a chance to unwind, to relax, even if it's just going to a day spa, even if it's just soaking in the bath or writing in your journal, doing something that's allowed you to unwind, allowed you to get in touch with yourself, so that you are prepared and ready for whatever this final eclipse in Leo is about to bring you in the weeks ahead. So thanks for joining me. If you would like a reading with me, the link is in the description below. Also, any of the readers on Lada's channel I highly recommend for different, they use different techniques, different insights, different knowledge. You can learn from that, and so I'd encourage you to get a reading, or do some of Lada's courses and learn to understand your chart better, so that your interpretations are empowered when you look at your chart and what's coming up for you. Thanks once again, and God bless.